Man, watching that Dolphins and Bills game last night really put something into perspective. It made me stop and think about how fortunate we are to have Lamar Jackson running the show for the Ravens. Seeing how some teams struggle with consistency at quarterback just makes me appreciate even more what Lamar brings to Baltimore every single week. But while the quarterback situation feels secure, there's another part of this team that's giving fans a little anxiety right now, and that's the health of cornerback Nate Wiggins. His situation has been on my mind ever since that Browns matchup, because he played a great game, even grabbed an interception and almost turned it into a pick six, but ever since then something hasn't looked right. During that Browns game, after celebrating a big play, Wiggins came up limping. Reports later said it might have happened when a teammate jumped on him during the celebration, and from that moment forward you could see he just wasn't moving the same. He toughed it out and finished the game, which at first made me think it wasn't too serious. But when practice rolled around and his name was missing from the field, the concern grew. The team later labeled it as a groin injury. John Harbaugh addressed it and said it wasn't anything long-term, not season-ending, which was a relief. But if you listen closely, Harbaugh's words didn't exactly scream confidence either. He didn't flat-out say Wiggins would be back the next day. He said hopefully he could practice, and that hopefully carries a lot of weight. Because usually, when it's something minor, Harbaugh is quick to reassure that the player will be fine. This time, it sounded more uncertain. That uncertainty matters because Nate Wiggins isn't just some rotational player. He's a starting outside cornerback and a huge piece of what this defense is built to do. His rookie season showed flashes of just how special he can be, even though it took a little while before he started getting consistent snaps. Once he did, though, his confidence grew and his production followed. That's why so many of us were looking forward to what he could do in year two. Losing him for any amount of time changes the way this defense operates, especially with a heavyweight matchup against the Detroit Lions right around the corner. Now, yes, Baltimore does have depth at the position. Marlon Humphrey, despite leaving the Browns game banged up, was back on the practice field, which is a good sign. Jaire Alexander might be set to return after resting last week, and Chidobe Awuzie is another steady option. Add guys like TJ Tampa, Ruben Lowry, and Kean Mitchell into the mix, and you can see the team has reinforcements. That depth is valuable, but it still doesn't replace what Wiggins brings as a starter who is really beginning to carve out his role. Fans are hoping that number 2 jersey shows up on the practice field soon, because that presence makes a big difference. And speaking of difference makers, Lamar Jackson didn't quite look like himself in that Browns game either. A lot of people noticed it, and the conversation started almost immediately. He wasn't running the ball much early on, which is unusual, even if he doesn't take off every game. There was hesitation there. Later, though, he broke out on a keeper and reminded everyone just how explosive he still is, so it wasn't like he was completely limited. But you could tell he might have been feeling some lingering soreness from the Bills game. In that matchup, he took a shot from Ed Oliver that had him slow to get up, and the effects from hits like that can last a while. With back-to-back games coming up against the Lions and the Chiefs, both teams that pride themselves on tough defenses, the Ravens cannot afford for Lamar to be anything less than sharp. Another storyline fans are keeping an eye on is Derrick Henry. Nobody doubts his power, his vision, or his ability to drag defenders like rag dolls. But fumbles in consecutive games? That's not what we're used to seeing from him. Both came on punch-outs, which shows credit to the defenders making those plays. But it's still a trend you never want to see start with a running back of his caliber. Against the Browns specifically, Henry has never really posted monster numbers, averaging around 55 yards per game against them. That part isn't as concerning as the ball security, though. 2 games in a row putting the ball on the ground isn't something you just shrug off, even for someone with his resume. Ravens fans know Henry isn't about to rack up 17 fumbles in a season, but still, it's something the coaching staff has to address. When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, this team has dealt with injuries and inconsistencies before, but certain patterns have frustrated the fan base for years. One of those is the tendency to get a big lead and then ease up, allowing opponents to crawl back into games. It's happened under different coordinators, with different personnel, yet the storyline keeps repeating. That's why some fans have called for a change at the top, feeling that John Harbaugh has been too comfortable and hasn't adjusted enough when these collapses happen. At the same time, others point out that in the win over Cleveland, Baltimore showed a different mentality, continuing to pile on points instead of letting off the gas. If that's a true shift in philosophy, it's something fans have been waiting to see for a long time. But before getting ahead of ourselves, everything comes back to staying healthy. This roster has talent all over the field. The cornerback room is loaded, the offense is stacked with weapons, and the defense is physical and disciplined. Yet football is a brutal sport, and no amount of depth completely erases the impact of losing key starters. That's why all eyes are locked on Nate Wiggins right now. Whether he's back in uniform against the Lions or not could say a lot about how this secondary handles the next couple of weeks. The matchup against Detroit is going to test every part of this team. The Lions have backs who can break tackles, receivers who can stretch the field, and a quarterback in Jared Goff who thrives when the timing is right. That's where the Ravens' corners come in, needing to be physical at the line and mess with that timing to give the pass rush a chance to make plays. If Wiggins is out, the backups have to step up in a big way, but if he's available, it gives Baltimore one more weapon in a fight that's going to be physical from the opening whistle. When you think about what this Ravens team needs to do heading into the clash with Detroit, the margin for error becomes razor thin. The Lions are not just another opponent on the schedule. They are one of the most complete teams in the league right now, with a head coach who has no hesitation about stepping on the gas and running up the score when the opportunity presents itself. That means Baltimore has to approach this game with the mentality of not simply hanging around, but dictating the tempo from the very beginning. For the offense, that starts with finding rhythm early and refusing to let up. Lamar Jackson doesn't have to put up highlight runs on every series, but he does need to play with decisiveness. Quick passes, strong protection, and mixing in some creativity with the ground game will be vital. The Lions' defensive front thrives when they can pin their ears back and rush the passer, so the Ravens must find ways to neutralize that by getting the ball out quickly and forcing Detroit to play on their heels. Screens to the running backs, jet sweeps to keep the edges honest, and using Mark Andrews or even Charlie Kolar in the short passing game could keep the Lions guessing. The passing attack so far has leaned heavily on the receivers, and they've answered the call, but this game feels like the perfect opportunity to open things up with the tight ends as well. Detroit is going to come in having studied the tape of the last couple of weeks, and might believe Baltimore has gone away from its tight end-heavy sets in favor of pushing the ball outside. Adding that wrinkle back into the offense could make all the difference, giving Lamar another reliable outlet while stretching the defense thin. And of course, Derrick Henry has to be a factor. The fumbles have raised eyebrows, but when he is running downhill and wearing on defenders, it changes the complexion of the game. If he can control the pace on the ground and avoid mistakes, it not only sets the tone physically, but also opens up play-action opportunities where Lamar has historically thrived. On the defensive side of the ball, the assignment is straightforward in theory, but demanding in execution. Tackle well, stay disciplined, and do not give up big plays. Baltimore has done a commendable job this season of limiting the deep ball, forcing opponents to chip away with shorter passes. That has to continue. Missed tackles have a way of turning small gains into back-breaking plays, especially against a team like Detroit that has explosive players all over the field. Amon-Ra St. Brown is dangerous with the ball in his hands, and the Lions' running backs can punish poor tackling angles. The Ravens' corners need to be aggressive at the line of scrimmage, disrupting the timing between Jared Goff and his receivers. He is not a quarterback who thrives under chaos, so if the secondary can force him to hold the ball just a beat longer, it gives the pass rush more chances to get home. That pass rush will be key, too. Goff has solid pocket awareness, but he is not mobile in the way Lamar or other dual-threat quarterbacks are. This is where players like Odafe Oweh, Travis Jones, and Michael Pierce can make their presence felt. Consistent pressure without giving up containment will limit Goff's comfort zone. Detroit's offensive line is one of the better units in the league, so it won't be easy, but Baltimore has the talent to make this matchup competitive. Physicality, discipline, and smart rotations to keep guys fresh will be critical. Now, it's impossible to talk about this game without acknowledging how much frustration has built up in the Ravens fan base over the years. The story of blowing leads has been told too many times, with different coordinators and different rosters, but the same painful endings. That's why so many are looking at this stretch of the season as a proving ground not just for the players, but for the coaching staff as well. Fans are tired of watching big advantages slip away in the second half. The Browns game might have offered a glimpse of a new mindset, where the team kept attacking instead of easing up. The challenge now is consistency, showing that this was not a one-off but a true change in identity. John Harbaugh remains at the center of that debate. There are fans who believe his time has passed, pointing to the repeated collapses as a sign that his voice no longer resonates the way it once did. Others argue that his leadership, his steadiness, and his ability to keep a locker room together still matter, especially in a league where injuries and chaos are inevitable. What can't be denied is that this season, more than any in recent memory, feels like a tipping point. The roster is strong, the quarterback is in his prime, and the expectations are high. The way Harbaugh manages not just the big games, but the in-game adjustments will shape how this season is remembered. Beyond coaching, though, the players themselves have to carry the load. The cornerbacks, whether it's Wiggins, Humphrey, Alexander, or Awuzie, need to rise to the occasion. The linebackers have to be sharp in coverage and quick to close running lanes. The offensive line has to give Lamar enough time to work, while also creating the kind of push that allows Henry and the backs to establish dominance. And Lamar himself must find that balance between protecting his body and unleashing the dynamic playmaking that makes him one of the league's most dangerous quarterbacks. It's also worth remembering that football seasons are marathons, not sprints. The Ravens don't have to be perfect in Week 3 or Week 4, but they do need to establish habits that will carry them into December and, hopefully, January. That means not just beating the Lions, but beating them in a way that shows growth. Can the Ravens stay aggressive when they're ahead? Can they avoid the mental lapses that have haunted them in the past? Can they prove to themselves and the rest of the league that they are not just contenders on paper, but contenders in reality? The atmosphere around this game already feels different. It's Monday Night Football, the kind of stage where narratives are written and reputations are cemented. The Lions are riding high, and they will come in believing they can impose their will. The Ravens, meanwhile, have a chance to remind everyone that they are not to be overlooked, that their mix of talent and toughness makes them one of the most dangerous teams in football. To do that, they need all hands on deck, from Lamar to Henry to Wiggins, and every depth piece ready to step in if needed. There's a sense that these next two games, the Lions followed by the Chiefs, will tell us everything we need to know about this team's ceiling. Beat both, and Baltimore suddenly looks like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Split them, and you're still in good shape, but with questions to answer. Lose both, and the same doubts that have lingered for years will grow even louder. That's why every detail matters, every snap matters, and every decision matters. The Ravens don't just need to win games like this. They need to show a style of play that convinces everyone, including themselves, that they can finish the job when it matters most. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. In what is already shaping up to be one of the most talked about matchups of the season, Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell has reportedly stirred the pot with some sharp words about the Baltimore Ravens. Sources close to the team claim that Campbell, known for his fiery and unfiltered style, didn't hold back during pre-game media sessions, leaving both fans and pundits buzzing with speculation. According to insiders, Campbell dismissed the Ravens as overrated and hinted that Detroit's offensive line would have little trouble containing Baltimore's defense. "We respect every team in this league, but let's be honest, this isn't a team we're afraid of," he allegedly remarked, a statement that quickly spread across social media and sports talk shows. While some analysts are calling it classic Campbell bravado, others believe it might be a strategic move to fire up his players ahead of a critical division clash. The comments reportedly did not sit well in Baltimore. Sources suggest that Ravens locker room insiders are treating the remarks as a rallying cry, framing Campbell's words as underestimation bordering on disrespect. It's the kind of tension that can transform a regular season game into an instant classic, and fans from both sides are already circling the calendar for the kickoff. Rumors indicate that Detroit's locker room was divided over Campbell's approach. While some players thrive on the public edge their coach provides, others reportedly prefer to focus strictly on preparation, avoiding the media circus that often accompanies such comments. Meanwhile, Ravens players have been cagey but firm in downplaying the remarks, refusing to offer fuel for the fire while quietly ramping up their own preparation. What makes this scenario especially intriguing is Campbell's track record. His outspoken nature has led to both victories and high-profile blunders in equal measure. Sports pundits are now debating whether this verbal jolt will galvanize the Lions into a dominating performance or backfire spectacularly. Either way, the stage is set for a showdown that promises not only a battle of skills on the field, but a war of pride and media-driven narrative. As game day approaches, the ripple effects of Campbell's comments continue to echo. Fans are already crafting memes, and sports radio is buzzing with speculation. Will the Lions' bold coach get the last laugh? Or will the Ravens' retaliation be swift and decisive? One thing is certain, the chatter surrounding this matchup is louder than the roar of the stadium itself, making this one of the most anticipated games of the season. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.